And that brings us to Friday morning. When we tape New York Now, let's break down the week that was and look ahead with Karen DeWitt from New York State Public Radio and Mike Gormley from Newsday. Thank you both for being here.
Nice to be here.
On this wonderful Friday morning.
Right.
So as we speak, the Senate has wrapped up for the year. The Assembly is still voting. Something that happened overnight that I want to start with, really interesting, is the state is possibly, the Senate and the Assembly passed a bill that will put a 2-year moratorium on something called crypto mining. For our viewers that may not be familiar, it's basically you use computers and you solve math problems and you get Bitcoin. That's the simplest way that I can explain it.
That's right. And it uses a lot of energy.
That's the problem.
That is the key thing that's been very controversial about it. And the crypto mining companies have been repurposing old coal mining plants. They don't use coal anymore, but they use natural gas. And there's one on Seneca Lake that's controversial. They want to do one in North Tonawanda. And it uses a lot of power. And there's a concern when we're trying to get a handle on climate change that all this power is being used. And I think that's what finally put it over the edge in the Senate, which was hesitating as late as Thursday afternoon about whether they would do that or not.
Yeah, I think I woke up to the news that it had passed the Assembly. When I went to sleep last night, it was still not quite there. And then, and I should say, Mike, I want to ask you about this. This really rarely happens. Usually by this time, we know what's going to pass and there's no big surprises. Take me behind the scenes of what might have happened.
Well, there's been, you're right, this rarely happens, but you know, we've had cases of this before. What can happen at the end of session or just before the budget is adopted on April 1, you can get a influx of very important people pushing for this. And this is what happened here. Environmental groups are saying that they're criticizing the legislature for not doing more on climate change. And then they sort of, in the last 2 days, focused on this issue, and they pushed it hard. And the legislature, who, in fairness, the Democrats support this sort of thing, but it became imperative for them going into the elections here in the fall to have some big win for the environmental people, because that motivates the base, and that becomes a very important issue. So it's unusual, but it has happened before, and it's a good lesson for grassroots people that they can apply pressure right at the end, and sometimes it'll come through.
Oh, yeah.
There also was the so-called big ugly deal.
Yeah.
Governor Hochul didn't engage with legislative leaders to trade. I'll trade you this, I'll trade for that. Mostly they focused on reacting to the U.S. Supreme Court potentially striking down Roe v. Wade and the mass shootings in Buffalo and Texas. And that seemed to dominate the end of the session. They got agreements on all those bills pretty easily. And it just seemed like, I thought all the rest of the stuff was going to fall off the table because there was so little talk of it. But Mike's right. In that situation, if you're a savvy lobbyist, like a lot of the environmental lobbyists are, you can get in and just convince a few people and, you get a win.
Especially with crypto this year has poured so much money into this effort.
Right.
I mean, every lobbying firm in Albany has a client right now that is crypto, is what somebody told me. PR firms in Albany have clients that are crypto. They really didn't want this to go through. And I think you're right, Mike. It's a really good lesson about how the little guys can somehow come through at the last minute, especially with some of these newer lawmakers who are more willing to listen to them than the lobbyists from these big industries.
True. But the big question is Governor Kathy Hochul going to sign it?
Exactly.
She's been pretty much on the fence, and the unions that want more crypto mining have endorsed her, and she's got a primary coming up in a few weeks. So I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on her. What is she going to do about this bill?
Now, I want to turn to guns and abortion because you mentioned the primary. Do you think, Karen, that helps her in the primary? I don't know if she's necessarily in danger. I will say that much. But she supports these new gun laws. She supports the new abortion protections that the legislature passes. Presumably, she's going to sign them. We will wait to see when that happens. Does that give her a boost?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Absolutely. With Democratic primary voters, these are big issues, probably even more than moderates or Republicans might be more concerned about inflation or other issues like that, or definitely on the other side of maybe a lot of the abortion rights and gun control. Yeah, it definitely gives her a boost. She's been pretty Teflon all along, though. I mean, nobody's talking about the corrupt ex-lieutenant governor, Brian Benjamin, that she chose. Do you ever hear anything about the Buffalo Bills stadium deal that was such a big deal and such a horror that she agreed to spend all this money? So I think she's pretty well positioned going into this primary.
I think so, too. I think she hit a road bump in the budget when she introduced the criminal justice changes at the last minute and the Bills stadium. I think she had a few rough weeks there of getting some really tough questions about her governing style. But then in the past few weeks, really, that's all kind of faded away. way. And I think part of that is the national issues that have come forward that she's really come out strong on, especially with the shooting in Buffalo. I mean, she was there, and then she had press conferences, really powerful words, that initial press conference where she announced her support for stricter gun laws, where she was holding up things like bullets and magazines and really showing an understanding.
And it was real. I mean,
Yes.
it came from the heart. Like, what a horrible thing to happen in your hometown. It wasn't just, you could tell that she's definitely not posturing about this.
The wins are clear for a primary, for both parties, really, because they go into their base. And yes, absolutely, this is helping the Democratic base, because what the Democrats have to do is not just appeal to the left-leaning members, they have to get them out to vote.
Yeah.
So this will get them out to vote for the primary. The concern is going to be, how do these play after Republicans spend millions of dollars on TV ads in the fall? Because there's a concern out there that Governor Hochul and the legislature in particular is going too far to the left, and that's an argument Republicans have been making. Republicans are going into this year thinking it was going to be a Republican wave in November. Don't know if that's going to happen or not now, because after the mass shootings, after the wins in abortion and the threat to abortion rights, that may change. But the primaries, she's well positioned, but they have to be thinking about what's going to happen in November.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. I mean, Republicans have said, and I think that they are probably correct, that this is their best chance in 20 years to take the governorship and maybe other statewide offices. With Lee Zeldin presumably as the nominee, we'll see that in a few weeks in the primary. I just don't know. What do you think, Karen?
Well, also President Biden, even among people who support him, they're just not excited about him.
They're not
He
energized.
doesn't have that kind of power that, say, President Obama had, or the polarizing power of former President Trump. So I think that that's part of it that might depress Democratic turnout. And the other thing on the other side of Hochul, she's Teflon, but she's also not polarizing. I think many people think, okay, she's okay. It's exciting to have a woman governor. I'm not like so upset that I'm going to go out and vote either for her or against her. So that could hurt her too, if you think about it, right?
Yeah,
especially if the Republicans can make a case that she's all friendly with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
She does have a terrific demeanor for politics. It's almost an aw shucks kind of look, She has that upstate bearing and stuff, but she is a smart and shrewd politician.
Yes.
And those combinations can work really well. We saw that Bill Clinton, that worked for Bill Clinton, and others who can mesh those talents.
She's really been able to, I think in the past few months especially, let me take it back to August. When she started in August, I think she did have some trouble getting started with speaking to crowds. I think that she did have some trouble there, kind of finding the right words to say to give confidence to people. In the last few months, we've really seen that change. And especially, I'll bring it up again, her press conference down in New York City after the Buffalo shooting. It was really powerful to hear her go through step-by-step everything, and just her pacing. It seemed to really be appealing to people. And I think in this moment, a lot of people want action on this on some level. I don't know what it looks like for everybody. A lot of people say gun control. Other people will say mental health, as we just heard from State Republican Chair Nick Langworthy. But also going into the fall, I have to wonder how criminal justice changes are going to play into the election, if they're going to play into at all. I mean, they did change bail reform this year again. Karen, what do you think? Does that follow her into November
It
again?
depends if we just keep having the gun violence, the crime spike. That's certainly an issue for Republicans that they can bring up. So it's hard to tell. I mean, we're talking now, what is it? It's June, right? It's hard to know what month it is.
Yeah.
So the election it's almost like half a year away. So it could be like anything by then. We've just seen, especially New York State government, we've seen things blow up. I mean, last year at this time, we would have said, well, when Andrew Cuomo goes for his 4th term.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to predict. I mean, if the general election were in a month, probably she would win, but a lot of things could happen. And we'll see how much the economy, inflation, gas prices. I know they temporarily got rid of the state gas tax. I haven't looked at the pumps. I don't think it's made a difference yet. So I think there's just a lot of other stuff. It's really kind of an uncertain world right now,
That's a good point. You have to wonder how these national issues down the road, not to play on words, down the road with the gasoline prices, are going to play into all of this. as we go forward, a lot of people think that a lot of their lives are controlled by the federal government in a lot of spaces. But as we all know, the state government does a lot of this in terms of state income tax, property taxes, all of that. We are out of time, unfortunately. We could talk about this all day.
Right.
And we'll see what the Assembly does this afternoon. But Karen DeWitt from New York State Public Radio, Mike Gormley from Newsday, thank you both.